One of the biggest betrayals I've ever experienced was finding out African wax prints.
The origin of batik, though, is not from Africa.
This technique is come from Indonesia.
We've had this done in Indonesia, where it is known to have started for several centuries.
So the Dutch saw gorgeous Indonesian batik fabric and thought, oh, we should mass produce this and make tons of money. But the Indonesians were like, yours is kind of ugly.
I make your speakers bang.
Batik kini kian dikenal oleh masyarakat dunia sebagai warisan budaya dari Indonesia. Bahkan jika ada yang mengklaimnya, maka akan jadi bahan tertawaan di era digital yang semakin marak seperti sekarang. Di banyak negara Afrika, batik semakin digandrungi sebagai gaya baru untuk mengekspresikan karya seni dalam outfit yang digunakan. Entah itu pakaian, tas, selendang, dan sebagainya. Walaupun orang Afrika sudah memiliki banyak karya dalam lukisan atau gambar sejak berabad-abad, namun untuk menuangkan ke dalam kain, mereka tetap menyebutnya sebagai batik. Dan tidak ragu sedikitpun mengatakan bahwa teknik batik berasal dari Indonesia. Bukan seperti bangsa maling yang hanya memodifikasi corak, maka batik dikatakan berasal dari negaranya. Hal ini membuktikan bahwa negara yang jauh sekelas Afrika pun masih mengenal adab dalam menghargai karya suatu bangsa. Uniknya, sejarah batik di Afrika sebenarnya bukan dibawa oleh orang Indonesia itu sendiri, melainkan perusahaan dari Belanda yang mengkapitalisasi karya batik asal Hindia Belanda di masa lampau. Awalnya, orang Belanda melihat kain bercorak indah yang digunakan masyarakat di Pulau Jawa. Dan dengan teknologi yang dimiliki, orang Belanda mencontek dan memproduksinya secara massal. Akan tetapi ketika diperjualbelikan, justru batik lebih laris di pasaran Afrika terkhusus Afrika Barat. Untungnya, orang-orang Belanda tidak bermuka tebal dan tentunya tidak bertipikal maling budaya dari bangsa lainnya. Sehingga perusahaan tersebut melabeli produknya sebagai budaya dari Indonesia atau yang dulu Hindia Belanda. Seiring berjalannya waktu, orang Afrika pun belajar membuat batik dan menambahkan corak-corak unik khas dari Afrika. Hingga suatu saat, orang paling berpengaruh dari Afrika bahkan dunia, sangat menggemari batik dan mengenalkannya lebih luas kepada masyarakat Afrika. Ia adalah Nelson Mandela, seorang revolusioner anti-apartheid sekaligus presiden dari Afrika Selatan. Dalam banyak kesempatan kenegaraan, ia kerap menggunakan batik yang ia pesan khusus dari Indonesia.
The origin of batik, though, is not from Africa.
This technique is come from Indonesia, Ile de Java.
Batik is an ancient art form which uses wax resistance to color in order to dye whole cloths. Originating in Indonesia more than 1,000 years ago, batik is either made by drawing dots and lines on the cloth or by printing the resist with a copper stamp. Afterwards, the fabric goes through the process of color, which may repeat for several times depending on how many colors are desired.
Edwina Hassan has been creating batik fabrics for nearly 30 years. She trains women and girls in indigenous batik making at her textile factory in Winneba in the central region of Ghana.
We are always coming up with different designs and different arrangements, and then of course different colors.
She believes the local production of batik fabric needs to be preserved to promote Ghanaian culture and tradition.
This is a unique area. We've had this done in Indonesia, where it is known to have started for several centuries, and they are still making money out of it, even though we have the factories. So I think it's another way for Ghana to make money out of our hand-painted fabrics.
As she gets more creative with her designs, Edwina hopes to pass on her batik making skills by training women and creating jobs for young people.
A better promoter of Indonesian batik they could not have wished for. Nelson Mandela wearing the trademark shirt during a visit to George Bush at the White House.
with Michael Jackson and many other celebrities. It was the late Iwan Tirta who designed many of Mandela's shirts. In his shop in Jakarta, his photos are proudly on display.
We love Nelson Mandela not only because he's one of the biggest heart in our, one of the biggest heart in our modern history, but also because he loved Indonesia through batik.
It is believed that Mandela liked to wear handmade batik shirts because they're easier to wear than a suit, but they still look official. Others say it was his way of showing his love for other cultures. It was Nelson Mandela who first started wearing batik shirts at formal occasions worldwide. And although Indonesian high officials have since then followed his example, many still feel that only Mandela could get away appearing in this colorful shirt.
One of the biggest betrayals I've ever experienced was finding out African wax prints are not African. Wax print is iconic fabric worn by so many Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. One of the most significant identifiers of a rich African culture actually originates from Indonesia. Now, how the hell did the fabric from Indonesia end up having such a cultural significance in West and Central Africa? It all started with batik, an ancestral Indonesian textile that involves a very intricate dyeing technique. Now, Indonesia was colonized by the British and the Dutch in the 19th and 20th centuries. Both the British and the Dutch thought that batik could be a huge economic opportunity. They created cheaper and industrialized versions of batik and sold them back to Indonesians. As you can imagine, Indonesians were like, and they completely rejected these poor imitations. To avoid waste, Western merchants redirected the surplus of textile to West Africa, and the rest is history. They loved it. Before Anna Wintour, wax prints were initially worn by African elites to flaunt their wealth and high status. Today, many people in West and Central Africa and the diaspora still wear wax prints for ceremonies, celebrations, or just casually. But some people also reject wax prints because of their colonial history. Cameroonian designer Iman Alissi, for example, argues that wax overshadows indigenous African textile. Now, when it comes to production, the Dutch company Vlisco seems to dominate the luxury wax market. Thailand and China also joined the game in the 2000s, but they're often criticized for the poor quality of their products. And of course, there are some African companies as well, such as Sotiba in Senegal.
I love when fashion gets geopolitical. So the Dutch saw gorgeous Indonesian batik fabric and thought, oh, we should mass produce this and make tons of money. But the Indonesians were like, yours is kind of ugly. So the Dutch, being the persistent little colonizers that they are, shipped their knockoff batik to West Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, and Cote d'Ivoire. And the West Africans said, well, I guess we'll take it, but we need to make this better. So they turned those prints into symbols of pride, power, and tradition. So now both Indonesia and West Africa are rocking wax-dyed prints that started as a colonial cash grab turned into a fashion flex. So that's not just style, that's revenge couture.
Dulu, toleransi kita begitu tinggi terhadap bangsa pencuri. Namun sayangnya, dengan toleransi tersebut, kita sering ditusuk dari belakang. Tidak sekali dua kali, namun berkali-kali. Kini, setelah bangsa maling sudah semakin tenar di seantero negeri, saatnya kita membuka mata bahwa mereka memang tidak pantas diberi ruang sedikit pun untuk kembali mencuri. Ini bukanlah suatu teguran, melainkan suatu seruan untuk menggilas bangsa maling karena selalu mengkhianati toleransi yang diberikan oleh bangsa Indonesia.
Indonesia has the best slogan of any other country. Wonderful Indonesia, It's a nice, it makes you want to come to this country, It's a beautiful slogan. But the worst has to be Malaysia. Because Malaysia is always jealous of Indonesia for some reason. And even in their slogan, they're fucking jealous of Indonesia. It's almost like if you listen to the slogan, it's almost like in the government office of Malaysia, they listen to the Indonesian slogan and they were like, fuck, that's a good slogan, Because their slogan is an answer to Indonesia. Because their slogan is Malaysia, truly Asia. Not like those, what do you mean? Like, it's so petty, you know, so passive aggressive. But it's true, you know, that they're correct. They are truly Asia, you know, because their workforce is Indian and Indonesian. Their best clothing, batik, is Indonesian. Their best food, rendang, is Indonesian. Like, they should rename their slogan in Malaysia, we steal everything from Indonesia, you know? Something. I don't know, or at least Malaysia, we wish we were Singapore.
You, Malaysia! Where are you from, Malaysia or Singapore? Malaysia, okay, yeah. You assholes.